Alright, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be the aftermath video to the Vasiliy Lomachenko versus Jose Pedraza fight last night. It was a relatively subpar performance for Vasiliy, at least in reference to what we're accustomed to. He normally is able to dominate his opponents, but there has been a noticeable difference in the level of dominance that he's exhibited in the 135-pound weight class as opposed to what he's been able to show in the lower weight classes. And that's expected because you're now facing the best boxers in the world just at a higher weight class, so they're going to have more punch resistance, they're going to be a little bit taller, they're going to be a little bit stronger, they're going to have longer arms. So that's really where greatness is going to be proven, because we're going to see how well he's able to adapt to the difference in opponents, their styles, but also their physical stature. That's why I say that over a period of time, we're going to have a chance to determine exactly how great he is. But it's only going to be once he's put in the ring with consistently great fighters. Shout out to Jose Pedraza, who put up a great effort last night. He truly was trying to win. I think that Loma would have stopped him earlier had he utilized the right hook to finish off his combinations. Timothy Bradley was bringing that up repeatedly over the course of the fight. And it was very obvious that Vasiliy was still thinking about the injury, and it took him a certain amount of time over the course of the fight to become comfortable in using it. Once he gained that confidence in the latter rounds, that's when he almost put Pedraza away. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Well, fans, after 12 rounds of action, we have a unanimous decision. Here are the score totals. Judge at ringside, Tom Schreck scores about 119 to 107. Steve Weisfeld and Joseph Pasquale both scored about 117 to 109. All three in...
I would agree with that last score, or the last two scores from those two judges, which was equivalent, 117 to 109. I would say that Vasiliy won about 9 rounds.
In favor of the winner, he is now the unified WBA and WBO lightweight champion of the world, Vasiliy Lomachenko.
Vasiliy Lomachenko has unified the WBA and WBO lightweight world titles.
Let me say this very quickly about Lomachenko. The sky is the limit for him because of his style of fighting. He's a slick, great craftsman who's aggressive. He actually wants to initiate the altercations with his opponents in the ring. He's not going to sit back and wait on them. And I'm a boxing enthusiast, so I could pretty much watch any style. I could watch Guillermo Rigondeaux, even though most people cannot watch him. Now, Rigondeaux, he was as highly esteemed in the amateur circuit as Lomachenko was. That's why there was such a fervor for their matchup or their meeting in the professional ranks. But not everybody could watch Rigondeaux fight. I could watch him fight. But Lomachenko is somebody that you could sell to the masses. Of course, he's a foreigner, he's a Caucasian, and his style of fighting is very charismatic. So it's pretty much up to what Bob Arum is going to decide to do, whether or not he's actually going to put him in the ring with somebody who may have a chance of beating him. That's why I'm looking forward to that Lomachenko versus Mikey Garcia fight, because I want to see how Mikey looks in the Errol Spence fight and how bad of a beating he potentially takes. That's going to determine who I'm going to pick for the potential Mikey Garcia versus Lomachenko fight, even though I anticipate that Bob Arum is going to try to get in the way of making that fight happen. Because as we all know who follow boxing, Mikey Garcia does fight under the Al Haymon boxing stable. And Bob Arum cannot stand Al Haymon. He hates him with a passion beyond description. So I anticipate Bob trying to get in the way. And also, Mikey Garcia and Bob Arum did not part on the best of terms. As a matter of fact, the antipathy between those two is somewhere near the Floyd Mayweather Bob Arum area of antipathy, or the Oscar De La Hoya Bob Arum area of antipathy. Like, they really parted on bad terms. So I anticipate that is a fairly good chance that the Mikey Garcia Lomachenko fight will not happen. But we'll see.
Pedraza tried as he could for the most part, then came that 11th round. Up to the ring to Bernardo we go.
All right, we're here with Vasiliy Lomachenko. Vasiliy, first man in your last 9 fights to survive. What took you so long to figure him out?
I think he had a problem throwing that right hook. He was not confident in it. He was also approaching his opponent on a straight line, which is something that he very rarely does. Maybe he just had no fear of Pedraza's power, and he wanted to test himself in that way. Who knows? but he was not utilizing the normal tactics that we're accustomed to from Lomachenko.
I need to translate a little bit. Hey, guys, translate me, please.
All right, I guess what took him so long to figure him out? Because he was the first man after 8 knockouts to go the distance with him.
Что тебе так долго заняло найти его?
Maybe it was just that Pedraza was a good fighter who fought hard and came to win. I mean, that happens. Everybody's not just going to fall down for people.
Yeah.
You know, he's a true warrior, and he do a very good job. So I respect Pedraza team. Very good job. Thank you.
Now you knew that he.
Now, through the early rounds, I would say through 6 rounds, I had it almost even. I might have had it 3-3 or 4-2. I'm trying hard to remember. The 5th round was very hard to score. I think I might have had it 2-2, 1 through 5 rounds. But the early portion of the fight was very close. Pedraza was very competitive. He came to win. He did not just come there to be an opponent. So shouts out to him. And that's the attitude that he was supposed to have, because he came in with a championship belt as well.
He could be a tough opponent because of his style. How do you rate your performance? Are you happy with your performance tonight?
I give Vasiliy probably like a 6.5 out of 10, at least according to the meter that we normally evaluate him on. There are very high expectations for his performances. So, I mean, when it comes to fighters like him, Terrence Crawford, other fighters of that ilk, Andre Ward before he recently retired, I hold them to a separate standard of excellence when it comes to their performances.
Ты рад своему выступлению?
Of course, I'm happy. Of course, I stay a little bit closer to my dream, to my goal. So I wanted to say happy birthday, Bob Arum, and I wanted to say thank you.
It's Bob Arum's birthday? I mean, how old is he? 85, 86 years old? And I'm talking about 85 AD or BC?
My team and all people who come to support me. Happy. Thank you very much.
How did the shoulder hold up? When did you get confident with your shoulder tonight?
Плечо.
Everything good. I don't have a problem, so.
Right, but dude, it was very clear that you were not confident in your right shoulder. You were not throwing that strong right hook to finish off your combinations like you normally do. And I think that slowed down, or that retarded the normal process that you utilize in the ring to break your opponent down. But it's understandable. You had a dislocated shoulder.
I'm healthy, 100%.
You had never done this. You have 2 belts tonight. You unified. What does it mean to you?
Oh, I think.
It means that he has 2 more to go.
I think I told later, да? Я раньше говорил же, что мне знаю, что это значит. Early. I told early. I don't want to repeat.
1 man, 1 belt. That's what Vasiliy Lomachenko wants at lightweight. Who do you want next?
Of course, I want 2 more belts, and maybe we can make in the next year fight with Mikey Garcia.
That's a fight that.
That's good. That's what a fighter does when he really wants to fight. He mentions a fighter's name right after the fight. He lets it be known. Look, I want to see Mikey Garcia. I don't think that Bob's going to let it happen, but we'll see.
Boxing needs. So Vasiliy Lomachenko wants to do this for his father, and he also wants to unify all the belts.
Mikey Garcia has some business otherwise, but that is undoubtedly a fight that all fight fans would want to see. Your final thought?
I'm hoping that we're not going to get what's left of Mikey Garcia. I mean, that's really what I'm hoping for. Because as I've already stated, he's utilizing a tactic that was just utilized by Kell Brook a little over a year ago, where he ran up to 160 to go get his ass wazazazuped by Triple G, and then came back down to fight Errol Spence so that he could make himself look brave. It's like, come on. Either you're going to fight the guy or you're not. But we all really know what it's about. It's about a risk-reward scenario, and nothing makes you look worse than when you get outboxed by a smaller man. Like, that really embarrasses great fighters when they get thoroughly outboxed by a smaller guy. That's why it's almost worth it to go search out that higher weight class great fighter, get your ass whooped by him, get a big payday hopefully, and then at least when you get outboxed by the smaller guy or the guy your size, you can use the excuse that you have not fully recovered from the previous ass whooping. We'll see. I'm not going to put all that on Mikey Garcia because I think that he's a different person from Kell Brook. He has a little bit better craft than Kell Brook has, but not by much. Kell Brook is himself a great pure boxer. And Errol Spence showed me a hell of a lot to get through that fight because Kell Brook, in my view, prior to him losing the belt, was probably the best world champion in the welterweight division at the time, and certainly, in my view, the hardest puncher. I think that Kell Brook punches harder than Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia, and Errol Spence was able to weather that. The only problem with Kell Brook is that he gets too deliberate sometimes. It takes him a while. He does not put combinations together. Keith Thurman puts his combinations together way better than Kell Brook does, but that's a whole other issue, a whole other video for another day, because as we know, Keith Thurman is another person who's been running from Errol Spence for a long time now.
Final thoughts, Mark, on Vasiliy Lomachenko's performance tonight?
You know, I thought that Pedraza distinguished himself in not surrendering the way so many others had. Then that 11th.
I think that Linares also did not surrender. I think they both just got worn down because Lomachenko's conditioning is incredible. Those two knockdowns in the 11th round, it's very rare that you're going to see a fighter in any weight class who could throw that many punches in a row when his opponent is hurt at a world-class level, because most world-class champions know how to survive when they've been hurt. And if it's to the point where you're going to make your opponent throw that many punches in a row, normally the fighter who's on the offensive has to take a break. Lomachenko in that 11th round took no breaks. He had to have thrown 75, 80 punches in a row before Pedraza was forced down to the canvas on a knee. And then, of course, he got back up and got put down again. So once Lomachenko has you in trouble, you're going to end up on the canvas in some way, shape, or form because of his tremendous conditioning.
This round onslaught came, it was rather extraordinary.
It took us some time to figure him out. You know, I knew Pedraza would be tough because he's long-rangey and he can box and he can do a lot of other things. He's very skillful. But Loma, once again, prevailed. He showed his class, the cream. Like Dre always says, always rise to the top.
That's an effort. And he is at the top of ESPN.com's pound-for-pound list with good reason.
Well, he's at the top of my pound-for-pound list, too, and a lot of brothers don't like that. It is what it is. I have him at number 1. I have Terrence at 1A. Why is that? I just think that Lomachenko's resume is so much better than Terrence Crawford's. I'm not going to say that his craft is necessarily better than Terrence Crawford's, but his resume is way better than Terrence Crawford's. The dude has only fought 12 fights, and I know every name that's on his 12-fight list. None against Terrence, but the biggest name that he's fought was Gamboa, a fighter who was who was about 5 or 6 inches shorter than him, and almost knocked him out. I mean, it's no disrespect. He had Terrence wobbly in that fight. I'm not going to say almost knocked him out. You know, he really incapacitated him in a couple of points in that fight. And Terrence's best victory was against Postal, which was a phenomenal performance. Once again, Terrence Crawford puts on spectacular performances. He's a wonderful fighter, very nuanced, decent defense, great offense, even though his defense is a bit overrated. Better footwork than I initially thought he had. But he's going to have to raise his level up if he's serious about truly challenging many of these other great champions in the 147-pound weight class. And I'm not quite sure how serious he is, because there was a brother who asked me about Terrence Crawford trying to challenge Errol Spence face-to-face and, you know, walking all up on him and putting on a show and so on and so forth. To me, if Terrence Crawford was that serious about fighting Errol Spence and these other fighters on the other side, then he would have made himself a free agent and maybe would have signed a 3-fight deal with Al Heyman or a 4-fight deal with Al Heyman to get those belts, and then he could run back home to daddy after that. You know, you could always go back home to Bob Arum after the fact. But signing with Bob Arum and then talking all that shit, I'm sorry, I just have an issue with that. But, I mean, hey, we'll find out. We'll find out down the road. Okay, so now let's see what the resident quote-unquote boxing experts at ESPN have to say about Vasiliy Lomachenko's victory over Jose Pedraza.
Greats perform when the lights are brightest, and Vasiliy Lomachenko was good enough tonight to win inside the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden. He was measured early. We had fireworks late. The Hall of Famer Teddy Atlas predicted Lomachenko would win a 12-round decision. He did just that. When you watch this guy fight, what's his greatest asset?
His greatest asset is his overall craft and his boxing IQ. That's his greatest asset. He doesn't count too much on one attribute in order to win a fight. That's why I state that he's going to be very, very difficult to beat, especially if he's in there with a fighter who cannot hurt him with one punch. Lomachenko is a special fighter. Is he necessarily the best fighter out there today right now? I think that he is, just looking at the combination of his craft and his resume.
His eyes.
Yeah, I know that shocks everybody, but his eyes. You know, where everybody else in this business has 20/20 vision, he's got night goggles with infrared laser beams.
I agree.
He sees everything. How do you think he avoids these punches? How do you think he sets up these punches? He's a bat with radar. He sees things that other people don't see. And one other thing, his elusiveness. He knows how to walk in the rain without getting wet, baby. He's able to handle a storm of punches, which he did a couple times tonight. And
his defense is not on the level of a Floyd Mayweather or Pernell Whitaker, but his defense is up there with anybody fighting today.
And come out the other side dry, like this man, clean, nice, beautiful. The only thing I'm a little upset about tonight, nothing to argue with.
Well, listen, I will say this.
I would love to have seen Floyd Mayweather fight against Vasiliy Lomachenko at 135. I think that both fighters would have understood that they were in there with another fighter that is pretty much a mirror image. The difference is that Floyd Mayweather's arms, his reach, would have been so much longer. Mayweather would have had a 72-inch reach, Lomachenko only about 65. And I think that Mayweather might have been just a little bit physically stronger than Vasiliy. But maybe not, who knows. But it certainly would have been a great fight.
I will say that I do have something.
Stand by.
The way you were talking about Lomachenko right there, you had him sounding like he's the daredevil. I'm going to go with Flash. I'm going to think about his hands. I'm going to think about his feet. The quickness of both obviously causes problems for
That's not a bad nickname for him, the daredevil.
anybody he goes up against, and that definitely caused problems tonight for Pedraza. He was game. I give him credit. He didn't fold and quit on his stool like Rigondeaux did, like Sosa did, like Water.
He was very game, but in the 11th round, that body attack by Lomachenko near the end of that long flurry, whew, you could tell that really hurt him. He wanted to quit. But that's what heart is. That's what courage is. Being tempted to do something that you shouldn't do and then overcoming it.
Waters did. You know, those guys, Mariaga, like they did. He came to fight. I give him credit for it. He just was the inferior fighter. You combine that with the absence of power, he really didn't have any chance.
Agreed.
You know what? The thing that allowed him to survive, and that's part of the right word here, with Pedraza, you know, because he didn't win too many rounds, but what allowed him to survive...
I give him 3, maybe 4. If you were looking for rounds to give to Pedraza, maybe 4, but I give him 3.
I give him 2, but okay. Your man's is different than me. I mean, you're at a higher place. You count better than I do. You went to college. I didn't go to college.
Stop it.
No. I'm just saying. But the thing with Pedraza was he was the naturally bigger guy. He understood that, and he was longer. So when Lomachenko would come in 3 inches early, he'd go back 4. So that allowed him to kind of keep that range, where he was just out of range and had some opportunities to counterpunch a little bit. And it was the right way to fight. It's just with the wrong guy.
I would tell you.
Well, it wasn't really with the wrong guy. It was the right way to fight. It was the only way for him to fight, or at least try to fight Lomachenko. The problem is, once again, as Stephen A. Smith said so well, Pedraza just did not have the power to make Lomachenko pay for trying to come in on him.
I figured him out.
I'll tell you what bothered me near the end. At the end of the fight, you saw him hugging and congratulating him and all of that stuff and clapping and all that. He was happy to survive. It's like he came here tonight to survive.
Well, that's not quite fair, Stephen A. Smith. He was happy because he put forth the effort. And that's all he could do. As you already stated, he was in there with a fighter who was clearly at least one class above him. So he deserved to be at least content with the effort that he put forth, because he did try to win. He was not there just trying to put in rounds. He was there to try to win. He just wasn't good enough.
He didn't come here to win, and it showed. He was the inferior fighter. The outcome was predictable, but still, you want to see somebody with the mindset, I'm coming to make history. I didn't see that from him tonight. I saw a guy that wanted applause and was incredibly happy. He survived.
This man never survived.
Yeah.
Never survived.
Vasiliy Lomachenko leaves Madison Square Garden with 2 straps.
I tell you what, if Pedraza had come into the ring with the mindset that Stephen A. Smith wanted him to come in there with, he probably would have got stopped in 7 or 8 rounds like I had predicted, because he would have been too sloppy. And he would have neglected some of the advantages that he had over Lomachenko, that being his reach.
Straps tonight. I'm used to you guys being the better fight than what we had. I think it was in the ring tonight. Lomachenko the unanimous decision victory over Pedraza, guys.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see what lies in store for Mr. Vasiliy Lomachenko. So peace.